Good afternoon. Welcome to Giants Roundup on Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. Doing a little bit of off-season catch-up, and hopefully we will see a sweep of the LA Dodgers in the World Series. I've got Boston winning this series in 7 games. Boston certainly has the better pitching, so I certainly think Boston wins it. Yeah, Boston's going to get another championship, but it's better than seeing the dreaded Dodgers celebrate a championship. You can follow on Twitter, join the Creep and Kite page on Facebook. Most importantly, please be kind and hit that subscribe button. Let's start off with some managerial hires made this week. We're going to start off with the Angels with Brad Ausmus becoming the new manager of the LA Angels. I think this could be a good hire. He is likely going to embrace analytics. And we'll see what happens. He definitely has some playoff experience. Now the hard work comes for Artie Moreno, as the Angels will look to make some splashes in free agency. So we'll see how the Angels do. But I think this is a good hire. I definitely like the hire with the Angels, and now it's just time to surround them. Definitely time to surround Mike Trout with some talent. You've got Justin Upton, but they definitely need to get a better starting rotation with Garrett Richards gone. Maybe Haney, you could be your ace next year. Maybe Shoemaker can bounce back next year, but it's definitely time to get some fresh blood in the rotation. I think Artie Moreno will definitely be taking a hard look at Patrick Corbin, Dallas Keuchel. So certainly there they could look at adding some pitching. They could also look at adding a DJ LeMahieu to the lineup. Of course, I think they're definitely in the hunt for a guy named Bryce Harper. So certainly a lot to look forward to over there in Orange County, and I think definitely Artie Moreno is going to spend this offseason. And we'll see how Brad Ausmus does over there. I think this is a decent hire. Definitely, he had some good years with the Tigers before, and that wasn't necessarily an indictment on Brad Ausmus either. His roster got old, and Mike Ilitch, they still are eating a lot of bad contracts over there with Jordan Zimmerman, Miggy Cabrera's turning out to be a pretty bad contract. V-Mart was signed for a long time, so we'll see. But now the task for Ausmus is going to be to try to get the Angels, try to get Mike Trout to the postseason. That is and then the other question for the Angels is Albert Pujols going to be on the team? I certainly think they could be negotiating a buyout for Albert Pujols here, and this is going to be a very interesting offseason for Billy Epler and Artie Moreno. And of course, they're at odds with the Anaheim City Council trying to negotiate their lease with the new mayor being elected in Anaheim. They're trying to hammer out details of a possible renovation of Angel Stadium. Will it work? We'll see, but Definitely, they opted out of their lease over there in Anaheim. So we'll see how that works out for them. The other hire was for Cincinnati. They made a managerial hire, and it was David Bell, the Giants' vice president of scout. David Bell is now going to be managing the Cincinnati Reds next season. He's going to be in to rebuild the Reds. They're definitely going to be in the market they're going to do some spending this offseason, try to get the Reds relevant again. And David Bell's definitely an analytics guy. I think this is a decent hire. It's too bad, though, the Giants lost David Bell. But I was a little surprised they didn't go with Mike Farrell. But maybe this is. But I kind of like this idea of not going the route of a retread manager. This is definitely a good. And I think this is better than hiring a retread sometimes. I think this is where teams are shying away from is the retread manager, but Bell is definitely an analytics guy. He's definitely got some experience. But we shall see, though. Now it's on. The pressure's on the Reds to. I don't think they're going to go. I don't think they're going to get a Patrick Corbin or a Dallas Keuchel, but they could certainly take a look at Nathan Eovaldi. They could certainly take a look at Charlie Morton. So there's certainly some names that they'll probably look at the lower end. Maybe they go out and acquire a Dylan Bundy. But step one is trying to make the Reds good again. They have not been to the postseason since 2012 or 2013. But now you got some good kids in the market. You got Scooter Gennett, who's got a bright spot. You've still got Joey Votto. I certainly think they are going to discuss a buyout for Homer Bailey, who's really had his struggles the last couple of seasons. He can't even stay healthy anymore. I think they're just going to simply part ways with Homer Bailey. And good luck with the Reds. I wish them a lot of luck here, and we'll see what the farm brings up for them. But it's just Cincinnati's task next year is just to show some promise, start trending upwards. But also, I'm kind of disappointed Jim Riggleman did not get the interim tag removed. The Reds did play a bit better when Jim Riggleman was made the interim. So I'm kind of disappointed he did not get the interim tag removed. So we'll see what happens with him. All right, now speaking of the Giants, they did lose David Bell. Now we will see who will replace David Bell in the Giants front office. And that replacement's probably not going to happen until the Giants hire a general manager. And it's just going to make a lot more work for the incoming GM for the Giants, who's already going to have their hands full when they do get hired. But we shall see. Maybe now all eyes will be focused on Hensley Mullins. They maybe move a guy like Hensley Mullins to the front office. But that's going to they'll probably hire one of the assistants to replace David Bell. I think that's what's likely going to happen. We'll see who becomes the Giants' new farm director. And in this 1 year of being a farm director, I've liked what Bell has done. You've got Joey Bart with the Giants now. You've definitely starting to get some promise in the farm. It's still a year or two out till you get some of the better talent into AAA, but you do have something in AAA for next year to look forward to. You've got Sean Anderson ripening on the vine. He's getting very close to a call-up. Tyler Herb, we'll get to him in a moment, but we'll definitely do a little bit of prospect talk and 40-man roster moves in a moment here. But I certainly think that I'd like to see hopefully some fall, but and of course Alan Hansen, what a great find by him. But as for the GM search for the Giants, but they're looking at Jason McLeod as possibly a candidate. So he's an assistant with the Chicago Cubs. Also, Emil Sade was another one who interviewed. He's analytics oriented, so it's starting to look more likely than not. I think the Giants are maybe starting to look more likely than not. The Giants are looking at a analytical hire to replace Bobby Evans. And it may not be it might take a good while because this is going to be this roster is truly a mess. This team is certainly a mess. This is not going to be an easy task, and certainly the GM may want to do something the shareholders do not want to do and embrace the tank for next year. But I think we'll hear more news about a GM hire after the World Series. We'll see what happens. We could certainly hear some news about Wotus retiring and other news like that. But the Giants are starting to purge the roster a bit. It's looking like they're not going to be bringing back Kelby Tomlinson next year. He is headed for free agency after, and that was no surprise. You've got Alan Hansen, who will be on the roster next year. Pablo will be back. You'll have Pablo Sandoval back next year. So I do wish Kelby Tomlinson a lot of luck. But it was almost certainty that Tomlinson was not going to be back. He was been back and forth, yo-yoed all year between Sacramento and San Francisco, and he was simply outrighted. So he will, but I certainly think he will definitely latch on. And Kelby was going to be out of options anyway, so they cannot. He was likely going to be heading for waivers if he did not make it off of spring training. So I wish him a lot of luck. Miguel Gomez, he'll probably go to another organization somewhere. I wish him a lot of luck. But now with Abital Avellino becoming the 10 for the 25-man roster, it's just, I think, becoming a minor league free agent is what's best for Gomez. He's pretty much locked out of the 40-man roster at this point. Avellino. So we'll see what happens there. Tyler, you got Chase Darno, who elected for free agency. I like Darno. He definitely has some good pop off the bench. But another guy who might have a tough time making the roster next year, you're going to have Panda back. You're going to have Alan Hansen there. And then, of course, you may see him. Certainly on opening day, you could see Aramis Garcia be on the opening day roster, depending on where Buster Posey is on his return. And Belt, he's probably going to be, if they're unable to trade Brandon Belt here in the offseason, he could be split. Hello, Go Skittle. How's it going? Belt could definitely be, if they cannot find a trade partner for him, he could be going back and forth between first base and the outfield. So Darno, definitely one I'm kind of bummed to see head for free agency. Casey Kelly was another good story in AAA. He was up with the Giants towards the tail end of the year. Definitely has some bright spots in the bullpen, and I thought he could be a guy that could be in spring training and challenge for one of the final bullpen spots. But I certainly think there might be a team like the Oakland A's or another small market team where maybe he can crack a 25-man roster as a starter. Casey Kelly looked great in his few times up with the Giants. So he was definitely a find. Great story. I wish him a lot of luck wherever he ends up on that. And then Tyler Herb cleared waivers, went back to AAA. I think Herb will be on the 40-man roster some point next season. Herb is definitely a prospect to watch next year. He's shown some signs of promise at times in AAA. He spent half of the season hurt, so he's reaching a point where I certainly think he will be back on the 40-man. He will be back on the 40-man at some point next year. He definitely does have some potential. He's just not going to be on the 40-man roster. We'll see who they protect next, but I've got nothing but good hope for Tyler Herb, and he could be one of the two youngsters who could be in the Giants rotation, depending what happens with Madison Bumgarner here in the offseason. And honestly, Bumgarner is the one that I think is heading for a trade sometime this offseason. As I said, they're going to have to maybe retain salary in order to move Brandon Belt. And we'll see what happens with that. But some other guys on the 40-man who I think will be off the roster at some point could be Josh Osich. Osich is a guy that he just fell off he really fell this year. He just did not have a good year up in the show and down in the minors. He's another one that's not going to have options next year. So I don't see Josh Osich being on the roster too much longer. Derek Law, he's reaching his final year of options. We shall see what happens with him. He could be yo-yoing, but we'll see how he looks in AAA or how he looks in spring training. But I think a guy who could maybe take one of the vacant spots in the back end of the bullpen could be a guy who looked great in September was Steven Okert, he finally found his stuff and looked like a major league lefty. He could be that lefty specialist, and I think Okert is finally going to be a guy who could have a roster spot going into the 25 opening day roster. Okert definitely looked great, so we'll see what happens with him. But Okert could be a replacement candidate should they decide not to bring back Hunter Strickland, and I honestly think Strickland should not return. And of course, Dyson, he might just be too priced out of the market. We'll see what happens with Sam Dyson. But we'll see what happens with more of these 40-man roster moves. And now I've kind of ran down who's out of options. And the one other guy who's out of options who may have one last opportunity next year, or he's going to probably head for waivers, is Mac Williamson. Williamson showed promise until he had that concussion, and then he was just never able to recover from that injury. And now this is kind of going to be last gasp for Mac Williamson. He is out of options next year. If he does not make the opening day roster, he will likely head for waivers. He will likely get claimed on waivers. So we shall see what happens with Mac Williamson. So that's the only other one who's going to be out of options next year. But now I'll be back on air when we get any news. Once the World Series ends, we'll start talking about free agency candidates and whatnot once the World Series concludes, and who the Giants could realistically target here in the free agency class. And, of course, we'll be back on there if we get any news on a new GM hire and whatnot. Everybody have a great day. Enjoy Game 2 of the World Series. Have a good afternoon. Goodbye.